Hello students. Today's topic is ITP and TTP. वीडियो तो स्टार्ट करें वीडियो ठीक कर दो ऐसे ये तो स्मॉल कर दो Okay, today's topic is ITP and TTP. So first of all, we will see what is platelet structure and physiology, and how platelets are formed, and what's their normal life and normal size. So the normal platelet, they are small disc-shaped cells without a nucleus. Normally they are measuring about 1 to 2 micrometer in diameter and 0.5 to 1 micrometer in thickness with a volume of about 6 micrometer. So the mean platelet count, platelet count in normal children and adults is about 250 to 10 to raise 9 per liter. Usually ranging, what is this normal range? You should know the normal range. So in laboratory and for normal, we mostly in majority of the cases we use the normal range. So normal range is of platelets is 150 to 350 or 400 into 10 to raise 9 per liter. Okay, this is the normal range, and within this range, the platelet count it will be considered normal. So platelets, they are derived from the cytoplasm or megakaryocytes, primarily located in the bone marrow. So normally a platelet is released to the bloodstream and it circulates for about 10 days before its removal, largely by the spleen. So platelets circulate freely without adhesion to the vessel wall or aggregation with other platelets. If stimulated, platelets become spherical, extend pseudopores, and they are adhere to the vessel walls and to each other. So it participates with the blood vessel, coagulation factors, and other predators in the initiation of hemostasis. So phospholipid bilayer, it lies within a glycoprotein that is rich outer core, and glycoproteins, they have essential roles in platelet activity. For example, glycoprotein 1b and glycoprotein 2b and 3a. They are important in platelet activation. So internally, a platelet contains an open canalicular network through which granule contents are secreted and a dense tubular system in which intracellular calcium is stored. Dense bodies, alpha granules and lysosomal granules, they are all visible within the inactive platelet, and in addition to glycoprotein granules and mitochondria. So during activation, the platelet contracts using actin and myosin. So next, see what are the alpha granules contained. In alpha granules, basically there is a von Willebrand factor, platelet factor 4. What is the work? It inhibits the anticoagulants and heparin and PDGF. It promotes the fibroblast activity in repairing vessel wall damage, and it also contains the factor 5, fibrinogen and fibronectin. While dense bodies contain ADP, what's the function of ADP? It initiates basically platelet activation and recruitment. And dense bodies also contain serotonin. What is serotonin? What's the function of serotonin? It is a vasoconstrictor. So this is a platelet shown diagrammatically. As you can see, it contains a mitochondrion, phospholipid bilayer, and it has a it also has the dense granules and glycoprotein and alpha granules. This is a basic platelet diagrammatically, and it contains the different things as I have already told. It contains alpha granules, dense bodies. Okay, next, what is the function basically that a platelet can perform in our body? Number one, there is a adhesion. Adhesion, the process by which platelets adhere to the basement membrane at sites of vascular injury. And bone Willebrand factor functions as a glue which sticks a platelet to the basement membrane collagen. So platelet adhesion is defective in if there is a deficiency of bone Willebrand. But in bone Willebrand disease, the platelet they can't adhere. The second function or the second reaction of platelet is secretion. So secretion there is a fibrinogen which will be used to stabilize the clot, and the second is platelet factor 4. This is antiheparin, and the third is inositol triphosphate. Basically, what it does, it controls the calcium release. So calcium is used to activate some of the clotting factors of the cascade system. And the third important function is the aggregation, and the fourth is procoagulant activity. So it induces procoagulant activity, that is PDGF. It induces the proliferation of fibroblast, microglia and smooth muscles. So it is stored in platelet granules and is released following platelet aggregation. So PDGF, it may also serve as a chemotactic agent for the inflammatory cells. So first of all, we will see what is the epidemiology. Epidemiology is ITP basically it occurs in 1 in 20,000 births, and it usually 1 to 4 weeks after exposure to a common viral infection. It's about in 50 to 65% cases. Okay, in males, male to female, they are equal in during the childhood, and they are most often in late winter and spring, peak season of viral respiratory illnesses. It can. And the next is pathogenesis. Pathogenesis is, so the number one thing is, it is idiopathic. It can be idiopathic. Secondly, it can be exact antigenic target for most such antibodies in most cases of acute ITP. In most cases of childhood acute ITP, it remains undetermined. So you should know what is the, there are the two basic types of ITP. Number one is acute ITP and the second is chronic ITP. So acute ITP, it is most common in childhood, and the chronic activity, it may demonstrate antibodies against the platelet glycoproteins. So next is most common viruses which are associated with ITP, with which it is basically exposed. These viruses are basically Epstein-Barr virus has a short duration, and HIV in chronic, and rarely in children infected with H. pylori and following vaccines. So this is the ITP pathogenesis of ITP. First of all, you can see there is a anti-platelet autoantibodies. They come and there's a sensitized platelets. So after sensitized platelet, there will be the FC portion of antibody, FC portion, and these will be further attached to the FC. This is the, in purple you can see, it's the microphage, and it has a FC receptor. So FC portion of antibody, it will be attached to these FC receptors. So next is what are the clinical manifestations? You should know what is the clinical manifestation, or what are the signs and symptoms with which patient can present, and then you will further investigate a patient of ITP. So classical presentation of ITP in previously healthy child is sudden onset of petechiae and purpura. So parents often state that child was fine yesterday and now covered with the bruises and dots, and there may be bleeding from the gums and mucous membrane, and finding on physical examination they are normal other than petechiae and purpura. So, and in clinical manifestations, it can also be accompanied by splenomegaly, lymphadenopathy, bone pain, and there can be pallor. So this is a picture of a child having ITP. So let's see what are the signs and symptoms, or what are the clinical manifestations in mild cases. Separately, in mild cases, there will be bruising and petechiae, and occasionally there can be minor epistaxis and very little interference with the daily living in these patients. So next is in moderate cases. In moderate cases, there is more severe skin and mucosal lesions, and they are more troublesome epistaxis and menorrhagia. While in severe cases, there can be some bleeding episodes. Bleeding episodes, these can be in the form of menorrhagia, epistaxis, melena, and these will require transfusion or hospitalization of these patients. So symptoms, these are interfering seriously with the quality of life in these patients. So next important thing is you should remember how will you investigate this patient which comes with these clinical manifestations or signs and symptoms. How will you investigate this patient, or how will you proceed, or what will be the workup for this patient? So first of all, you will order the CBC or complete blood count. Okay, in CBC you will see there will be severe thrombocytopenia. Thrombocytopenia means the platelet count will be below normal. As you know, the normal range of platelets is 150 to 400 into 10 to the 9 per liter. But in these patients, there will be severe thrombocytopenia. So severe thrombocytopenia means the platelet count will be less than 20 into 10 to the 9 per liter. It will be so less. So platelet size, it will be normal or increased. It can be increased. It will be reflective of increased platelet turnover. Okay, the next in CBC you will see there will be hemoglobin. Hemoglobin will be normal, or there can be some mild anemia. Anemia, it will be due to bleeding. Otherwise, the normal blood picture will be, and the normal red blood cell, they will be normocytic, normophobic. Okay, and the second thing, there will be white blood cell count, it will be normal, and the differential leukocyte count, it will be also normal. Though, okay, first investigation that we have done is it was CBC. The second thing is we will do the PT and APT of this patient. PT and APTT, it will be normal in this patient, but the BT or bleeding time, it will be increased in these patients. So these are the normal platelets, as you can see in this picture. These are the red blood cells in red color. These are red blood cells, and there are white blood cells and platelets. And in work will be in low platelet count. Red blood cells will be normal, and WBC will be also normal, but the platelet count will be decreased. So first you have done the CBC, it means complete blood count, and you have done the PT and APTT, and you have also done the BT. Bleeding time will be increased in these patients. The next we will do the CBC with peripheral smear. We will also see on the slides. Peripheral smear, there will be thrombocytopenia, and there will be normal erythrocyte and leukocyte count. Same. So the next investigation that we can do, it will be bone marrow biopsy or bone marrow aspiration. You can just remember we will do the bone marrow biopsy. Okay, there will be normal granulocyte and erythrocyte series with normal or increased numbers of megakaryocytes. Megakaryocytes, these are the precursor cells, or these are the immature cells. These are megakaryocytes. These will be further, by passing through the further step, these will be maturing to the normal platelet count. So these are the megakaryocytes. Okay, there will be also immature megakaryocytes. They may be present and reflective of increased platelet turnover. Okay, and we can also do some HIV studies for at high risk population. So the next test you will do, it will be Coombs test. Coombs means there are two types of Coombs test, direct and indirect, but in this case we will do the direct antiglobulin test. We also call it DAT. If unexplained, then anemia to rule out even syndrome, and there can be also to rule out the autoimmune hemolytic anemia with thrombocytopenia, or before giving the therapy with intravenous anti-D. So next is platelet antibody testing. Platelet antibody testing capability is seldom useful in acute ITP. And other lab tests should be performed as indicated by the history and examination of this patient. So next is what is the treatment? There is no data showing that treatment affects either short-term or long-term clinical outcome of ITP. But anti-platelet antibodies, they bind to the transfused platelets as well as to autologous platelets. So we can do some supportive measures in these patients. So for supportive measurements, we will do first of all reassurance in these patients, and second we can also do the restricting physical activity and avoiding trauma. So and avoid medications that suppress platelet production or alter their function, for example aspirin, heparin, valproic acid and digoxin, etc. Okay, for platelet, what can be the immediate treatment? We can give the platelet transfusion in this patient. It may be given in severe cases, but not in mild and moderate cases. If there is a severe anemia or there is this history of bleeding or severe bleeding, then we should transfuse the platelets in these patients. But these will be destroyed rapidly because antibodies will also attach to these transfused platelets and they will destroy these platelets. And the second thing, there can be a pharmacological treatment. Pharmacological means we can use some drugs to increase the count of these platelets. As per American Society of Hematology guidelines, a single dose of intravenous immunoglobulin 0.8 to 1 gram per kg or short course of steroids. Steroids are very important to increase the number of platelets in these patients. So we can also give the short course of corticosteroids. They should be used at first line treatment in these patients. And intravenous immunoglobulin at a dose of 0.8 to 1 gram per kg per day. For 1 to 2 days, it induces a rapid raise in platelets, and usually they will be more than 20 into 10 to raise 9 per liter in 95% of patients within 48 hours. So next there will be limitation of what can be the limitations of intravenous immunoglobulins. First of all, it is expensive and high frequency of headaches and the other side effects like vomiting, and these are the suggestive of intravenous immunoglobulin induced aseptic meningitis in these patients. So this second drug we can use is a prednisone. Prednisone, basically this is a corticosteroid, and it is given at a 1 to 4 milligram per kg per 24 hours. And intravenous anti-D therapy, it can also be given in this patient for RH positive patients, and it is given at 50 to 75 microgram per kg. It causes rise in platelet count more than 20 in 80 to 90% of patients within 2 to 3 days or 48 to 72 hours, and it is ineffective in RH negative patients. Okay, remember the venous entity we can give, but it will be effective in RH positive patients, and it is ineffective in RH negative patients. So each of these medications, they may be used to treat ITP exacerbations, which commonly occur several weeks after an initial course of therapy. So this is there's also a surgical treatment. Surgical treatment is the splenectomy in these patients. It should be reserved for one of two circumstances. It will be not done in every patient. Splenectomy should not be done in every patient. It should be reserved only for one of two circumstances. Number one, the older child, it means if the age of the child is more than 4 years, with severe ITP that has lasted for 1 year. It means in chronic ITP, if a patient is age is more than 4 years and he has a severe ITP and it is lasted, he is suffering from this ITP for more than 1 year, then we can do splenectomy. And the second is whose symptoms are not easily controlled with therapy. These are not controlled with these medications. So these patients, these are the best candidate for splenectomy. So, splenectomy must also be considered when life-threatening hemorrhage like intracranial hemorrhage and complications of acute ITP if platelet count cannot be corrected rapidly with transfusion of platelets and administration of intravenous immunoglobulin and corticosteroids is not possible. Okay, next is what are the risks after splenectomy? If we do the splenectomy in these patients, what can be the risk? Lifelong risk caused by encapsulated organisms is increased and there is increased risk of thrombosis and potential development of pulmonary hypertension in adulthood. So vaccination is also important in these patients. Administration of pneumococcal, meningococcal and H influenza type B vaccine should be done before we recommend the splenectomy in these patients. So vaccination is very important in these patients. And prophylactic penicillin following splenectomy should be also considered. So we have done the ITP. Next, we are going to do the TTP. This is thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. So the suspected TTP cases are 11 cases per million per year, and severe ADAM-TS13 deficiency is found in 1.7 cases per million per year. So incidence rates were greater for women and African Americans. And prior to plasma exchange mortality rate, it was as high as 90% and now less than 20%. So how will you diagnose a case of TTP? So there's a classic pentad of TTP. There is a pentad mean there are 5 things that will be found in this TTP patient. Number 1, there will be microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, and the second will be thrombocytopenia, and the third is renal insufficiency or abnormalities, and there can be neurological abnormalities that can be fluctuating fever. And most common symptoms at presentation, these are non-specific and include abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and weakness. So this is a physiology. As you can see, these are the circulating ultra large bone virulent factor multiples, and this is the endothelium. What will we do? In these are the normal. There are normal erythrocytes, that these are red blood cells, and there are in yellow color you can see there are platelets, and this is the microvessel. In microvessel you can see there erythrocyte, platelets and WBC. These are freely moving. So in tissue ischemia, what will be occur if these are blood flow is interrupted? In thrombotic thrombocytopenia purpura, basically what is the normally their blood flow is very effective in these patients in small blood vessels of the body. So remember, blood flow will be affected in small blood vessels of the bloods due to if the patient is having the TTP or thrombotic thrombocytopenia purpura. As a result of slow blood flow, the tissue, there will be tissue ischemia, and it will lead to the formation of schistocytes. The schistocyte means that there will be RBCs will be broken, and these will be seen in the form of schistocytes on peripheral blood smear, as you can see in this picture. And there will be also micro thrombi in small blood vessels. Okay, these are, again you can see the picture of yellow, you can see picture of schistocytes. Okay, thrombocytopenia, there is basically if there is thrombocytopenia, there will be epistaxis, bruising, petechiae, gingival bleeding, hematuria, menorrhagia, GIT bleed, retinal hemorrhages, and hemolysis. And what will be in central neurological, it will be often fleeting and variable in 70 to 80% cases, and there can be fever and non-specific symptoms. So in central neurological symptoms, there will be confusion, varices, aphasia, headache, and there can be some visual problems and encephalopathy, and there can be coma in 10% cases. So what are the other non-specific symptoms? As I have already told you, there can be pallor, jaundice, fatigue, arthralgia, or there can be myalgia. Okay, and there can be renal impairment. In case of renal impairment, there will be proteinuria and microhematuria, and there can be also some cardiac problems like chest pain, heart failure, and hypertension. And in GIT symptoms, there can be abdominal pain. So next is what are the types of TTP? Basically, there are two types of TTP. First is congenital and second is acquired. Okay, and autoimmune forms due to autoantibodies against ADAMTS, cysts, and it can be secondary to massive endothelial activation with the release of ultra large bone Willebrand factor multimers in large. So, first of all, we will see what occurs in congenital TTP. Congenital TTP is very rare and it represents 5% of all TTP cases. It usually occurs immediately after birth or during childhood, although it can also present later in life. And congenital TTP is caused by homozygous or double heterozygous mutations in the ADAMTS13 gene that affect the protein secretion of or function, and it is inherited in autosomal recessive manner. Second is acquired TTP. The acquired form, it accounts for 99% of the adolescents and adult cases. And what is the pathology? There is autoimmune TTP due to anti-ADAMTS13 antibodies that inhibit the proteolytic activity of ADAMTS13, and or they can be bind the protease to accelerate its clearance from plasma. And anti-ADAMTS13 antibodies, these are usually of immunoglobulin G type. Also in few cases, autoantibodies of immunoglobulin A and immunoglobulin N isotype, they were also found in these patients. So the higher incidence of autoimmune idiopathic TTP is specific in ethnic groups such as Afro-Caribbean. So these are the investigations that we will do in these patients. There will be for diagnosis. First of all, we will do in the last case, in case of ITP, we will order the CBC. It means full complete blood count with the peripheral blood smear. Okay, you will see the anemia, thrombocytopenia, fragments on film, and second there will be reticulocyte count. It will be raised and haptoglobin will be reduced, and clotting screen including fibrinogen, it will be normal. While urea and electrocytes, they will be raised in renal impairment, and we can also do some troponin T and for cardiac involvement to see the cardiac involvement. And we can also do some liver function test, and calcium, it will be reduced with px, and lactate dehydrogenase or LDH will be raised due to the hemolysis. And there can be urinalysis and direct DAT or Coombs test DAT. You can also do it, will be negative in these patients. And blood group and antibody screening will allow the provision of blood products, and we can also do the hepatitis A, B, C, and HIV virus testing to have some free blood products and to exclude any underlying virus. So, and we can also use some pregnancy test in women of childbearing age and anti-ADAMTS13 assay we can also do in these patients, and we can also do some ECG or echocardiography to see the cardiac damage, and we can also do some MRI and CT scan of brain to determine the neurological involvement in these patients. So this is a picture, flowchart showing suspicion of acute TMA. Okay, in which you will see there's an absence of ADAMTS13 activity. It will be found in more than 10%. Then we will make the other diagnosis. If it is less than 10%, then we will further suspect that TTP. If in case of, then we will further evaluate the anti-ADAMTS13 immunoglobulin G. If in case it is positive, then it will be autoimmune TTP. Okay, anti-ADAMTS13 immunoglobulin G is found. It will be autoimmune TTP. If it is negative, then we will go for other workup. It will be information from ADAM TS13 monitoring during follow-up, and we will do the ADAM TS13 activity in remission and antibody ADAM TS13 immunoglobulin during relapses. It will further lead to the detectable and always negative. It means there is a acquired TTP of unknown mechanism. And second, there can be detectable and positive at least one. Then there will be autoimmune TTP. And on the third, there will be, if it is always less than 10% and always negative, then there will be ADAM TS13 gene analysis. We will do this gene analysis. If there is no mutation, it means there is TTP of unknown etiology, or this is idiopathic TTP. And if there are mutations, then it will be inherited TTP. This is not important for you people. You can skip it. Okay, thank you, students. If you have any query or question, you can ask in our WhatsApp group.